I want to start by acknowledging that Big Brother 25 was quite enjoyable in terms of entertainment value. The cast kept us thoroughly entertained, and I genuinely enjoyed the season. However, when it comes to gameplay, there were some significant shortcomings. In all honesty, the strategic decisions made by the contestants were among the weakest I've witnessed, which might affect the season's overall ranking from a gameplay perspective. Every single player had major flaws and made terrible moves. Note, I do think there was some good gameplay throughout the season as well, but I made this thread to laugh about some of the comically bad gameplay that I saw. Kirsten overplayed and started throwing out names on day one. Riley named her entire alliance to Felicia just because Felicia asked who she was working with. Hism ran his hoe like a dictator and rubbed his alliance the wrong way by talking over them. He gave a scathing speech when he nominated Riley, which turned the whole house against him. Red. I actually can't think of a specific bad move he made, but that's because he really didn't play the game. But for some reason, he kept saying he trusted Siri 100%. Like why? Izzy. She was planning on going to the final three with an unbreakable mother-son duo. And of course, her fatal move was telling Corey she was going after his showmanship. Jared was cocky and couldn't keep his mouth shut, forced Suri to get rid of Red by making up a dumb lie about him throwing Cam under the bus. She told Jag he knew about the power, which completely torched Jag's trust in Suri for the rest of the season. He had a weird one-sided rivalry with Corey, who was supposed to be one of his closest allies, leading to a huge blow-up that exposed his whole game. Meme. Similar to Red, she also wasn't playing the game. She trusted brown sugar babes and just wanted to coast and not make moves. Cam played an awful social game and rubbed people the wrong way by being condescending and full of himself. He thought he was always right and wouldn't listen to anyone's input. Even when America was exposing the whole house to him, he was in denial. Plus, he broke up Family Style Week 2 and destroyed his trust with everyone in that alliance. Corey constantly threw his number one ally, America, under the bus to hide how close they were, but it just made people not trust them because anyone with eyes could tell how close they were. He was also cocky and steamrolled conversations without really listening to what people were saying. He managed to flip the entire power structure of the house, but then didn't take control after that flip, and instead Jat was able to run the house for the rest of the game. Blue, clueless about the game and delusional about herself as a player. She had no influence in the house, and after Jared left, she didn't have any close allies because Jat didn't trust her anymore. She held the biggest ammo in the game, Siri's secret, and didn't use it. America. She didn't make enough crucial bonds during that first week, and as a result, she was never fully trusted by either side of the house. She couldn't keep her mouth shut and was constantly spilling information, which made people suspicious of her. Her telling Blue that she was the target before the veto was a big reason why she and Corey were backdoored. Siri took out her strongest ally way too soon, knowing she was incapable of winning comps. She was indecisive and constantly flip-flopped on her decisions, making her seem untrustworthy. She laid low for too long after Jared left and was never able to regain control of the game. Felicia, a common theme of these players, couldn't keep her mouth shut. She was spilling information left and right and constantly throwing her allies under the bus. She held a grudge against Suri, and when she tried exposing her game to Jot, it also made Felicia look untrustworthy. Bowie. I spent the first half of the game living in La La Land and the second half happily playing for third place. Matt. At first, I thought he was playing a good rat floater game, but I really don't think he had any intention behind his moves, and the jury saw that. The illusion that he had any agency in the game was shattered when he let Jag evict Siri from his HAO without putting up a fight. He had possibly the worst jury questioning performance I've ever seen, maybe even worse than Gina Marie's. Jag spent the pre-jury part of the game with awful reads. He was completely clueless about what was going on in the house. Watching his game talks on the feeds was actually painful. He was evicted unanimously and the very next week agreed to go back on the block as a pawn, when he was actually the target at that point. He had to compile his way to the end, which, in my opinion, is the least impressive way to win a social strategy game. He had awful jury management and blindsided allies for no reason. He was lucky the jury wasn't bitter, and he almost fumbled the bag in the endgame by evicting 2 goats and taking a jury threat to the final 2. Bottom-tier winner, but a fitting end to this season of atrocious gameplay. And didn't Red tell people the first couple weeks that it was too early to talk game? That's definitely another bad game move. And I've watched a few interviews, and not surprisingly, Matt didn't perform well in the jury questions because it's hard for him in that environment. He did say he was surprised that Jag went to the "I was the leader" narrative and that he was not going to speak against Jag. Honestly, I think he's thrilled he made second because he didn't expect to make anything past the jury. With all he had to deal with, he did far better than expected. I'm a lifelong physically disabled person, not deaf. Matt did the one thing I wanted him to do in his final speech, which was to point out, yo, in a game of conversation, I missed 85% of it and figured it out. I knew he took over the room for a reason. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Eye on Point. It's Sophia, and I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Keep watching and hit the subscribe button. So let's start. On the other hand, as someone who has been a devoted fan of Big Brother for a long time, it's important for all of us to recognize and applaud the high level of production quality evident in last night's finale, irrespective of our opinions about the season as a whole. They nailed it. Everything had time to breathe. Nothing felt rushed. The jury discussion with Will was well done, the interrogation had good questions, and the pre-jury cast had hilarious moments. All of it was great. I'm glad they wrapped this season up with a nice little bow. If it weren't for having to look at Frankie's got-in face, it would have been a perfect night. And remember when the big reveal of the season happened, and the jury got to learn that Jared is Cerise's son, and production kept the shot on Blue's face for 10 seconds instead of getting a single reaction from the jury. That was a big production problem. And all I wanted was to see Felicia's reaction, not that smug look on Blue's face. And I did, however, enjoy seeing her face drop when Jared revealed that he told Blue his secret, and she 100% lied to Ceri that she figured it out on her own. And firm disagree on the jury segment. They were there for hours, and Dr. Will said it was quite spicy. We saw nothing. And Cam said things only got heated a couple times when Ceri and Corey were speaking, and he said the only breaks they ever took were for plain flavors. Dr. Will likely just trolled us, lol. The roundtable was probably like all the others. Keep in mind, this is the same guy who said Casey was the second best BB winner of all time after himself. The man knows how to sell a product, no matter how bad it is. It was a great finale, but they could have done better on a few things. The cast made it better than the production, but overall, it was better than editing from the rest of the season. And it is one of the best finals I've seen. Like the others said, more jury roundtables, cameras on everyone's reaction to Jared and Ceri, and a better intro to the Ceri-Jared drop. I was put off that they kept pushing Matt is going home with a girlfriend when they hadn't even talked. It is really unfair to Riley. A woman shouldn't be that pressured. On the other hand, did anyone else feel that the Journey Roundtable segment was poorly edited? Dr. Will called this the jury with the highest IQ. I can totally see glimpses of that, but I don't think the producers knew what they were doing. It's so choppy. I would love to see a longer, unedited clip of just this content. Jury, sorry, it's been a long week, and I felt extremely underwhelmed by that roundtable segment. Dr. Will really hyped it up as one of the best of all time, but it almost felt like production purposefully left out the exciting stuff that would have made for really great television. And yeah, I do think this is the smartest jury. You could tell every single person of those 6 on the round table is smart or has a lot of lived experience or game knowledge. Even Blue, with her kitty persona, is smart. I just wish the roundtable edit didn't suck ass. However, was Dan's period in solitary confinement before his funeral featured in the news? If so, is there a place where I can access the coverage? Big Brother 14. I wanted to know how he was acting during it, if you could see him thinking, scheming, talking, or mouthing. It was an insanely huge risk, but finding the perfect reasons for each person, then blowing up the Quack Pack, saving or being angry at Danielle, then reforming the Quack Pack a week later was insane. Was there any specific foreshadowing from a feed standpoint where you knew he was up to something? And his solitary confinement came with loud music, turntables, strobe lights, and a disco ball. They did show him in there on the feeds, but all I can recall him saying was asking himself how he was going to get himself out of the situation he was in. Nothing more. On the other hand, the runner-up in Big Brother seemed unprepared for the jury's inquiries, even though the questions posed were fairly standard and not particularly surprising. They were softballs, for sure, and even somewhat repetitive. Even if he didn't answer great on the first one, he had a chance to build on a similar answer for another, and he just couldn't do it. And it makes sense then that he didn't win over any votes with his answers. They liked him and were looking for a reason to think he had a real plan and strategy, and wasn't just relying on being nice to everyone and going along with Jag's plans. He couldn't answer typical jury questions about strategy and moves with anything they didn't already know, didn't give much depth of strategy or planning, and obviously didn't even go as far as to plan for these expected questions. He thought that since they liked him, he'd get the vote. He didn't show he worked much for it in the game, and wasn't really working for it on the stage either. It annoys me a bit that he thinks it's because they valued a certain number of competitive wins over likability, which may just be my interpretation here of what he's saying, to be honest, especially because I honestly didn't think he was more likable than Jag anyway, and I know it's kind of arrogant to think you're more likable than someone else. He was better at telling people what they wanted to hear, and Jag was a terrible liar. For sure, that's part of the social game. But Jag seemed to be just as nice a person overall as Matt seemed to the jury, since I'm discounting what all they were all saying behind their backs. And he never thought the jury would ask him what moves he made on his own in the game. And I felt really bad for him, like he couldn't answer the "tell me a specific time you lied" question, then talked about lying about having the power in a subsequent answer. I think he froze, and just more proof. The dude had no idea what he was doing. You are unprepared for the same exact questions that are asked every single year. You were unprepared for explaining your game and how it wasn't just playing for Jag. What was your biggest move? Is literally the single biggest question asked every single year. On the other hand, I'm curious about the relationship status of Matt and Riley. After checking their Instagram stories and those of other players, past and present, I haven't come across any indications that they are together. Even in pictures, they don't seem to be close to each other. I'd like to hear others' thoughts on this. And he's been out of the house for 24 hours. Give it time and things should be more clear. In my opinion, she was never into him. He confessed his feelings and she said, "Thanks, buddy." And I feel bad for her. Even if she was playing it up on her social media or whatnot, Julie put her on the spot multiple times, including the really weird comment to Matt at the end about how he lost the money, but at least he got a girlfriend. They spent 2 weeks together on a show and hadn't spoken in the 3 months since then. Surely she's been catching strays on her socials for all his unsavory comments and podcast preferences. That's a lot of pressure to throw onto someone on national TV for no reason really, especially when the showman shippers segment of the fanbase is notoriously toxic and intrusive. And I always thought she and Jag had more of a connection. I really think production was pushing the Riley or Matt storyline. The two actual shows they didn't bring up in the finale, but they bring up that Matt has a new girlfriend. It was almost like them making up the whole Taylor and Joe storyline last year. Additionally, the third-place finisher in Big Brother 25 responded admirably to being labeled a floater. Bowie handled these questions adeptly, acknowledging that she might not have stood a chance in a jury vote. Nevertheless, it would have been intriguing to witness her responses in front of the jury and hear her final speech. Honestly, she may have answered better than Matt. I don't know why she would be offended that Felicia said she doesn't look 35. She very clearly doesn't, and there's nothing wrong with that. Looking your age does not mean you look bad, haggard, or whatever. And she claims she floated by design, but I didn't see a whole lot of intelligent thought in her game. She could have turned the game on its head and potentially given herself a decent chance to win by evicting Jag or Matt on that double eviction, but she left them intact. That would have easily been the biggest move of the game and put a huge feather in her cap, but she declined to make it. The lack of awareness of her standing with Matt and Jag was troubling too. She was always playing for third place, but she even admits in this article that she didn't realize it until the night before the finale. I like her as a person and as an Aussie, but she's just not a good player in this game. And I wouldn't even give her the credit of being called a floater. On the other hand, what stood out as your favorite moment from Big Brother 25? Personally, I'm not sure what you discussed in chat rooms, but I absolutely enjoyed the Piggy Pal segment. The dynamic between Izzy and Cameron, engaging in that repetitive task and keeping each other entertained for hours, was fascinating. I regret not catching it on the live feeds. The part where they rolled in the mud at the end was just hilarious. The argument between Jared and Corey in the HM room on the day of Izzy's eviction. Throw your opinion in the comment section below. According to my discussion, it is appreciated. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more.